Hello everyone, thank you for coming. Before we start tonight's discussion panel, I would like to tell you a little bit about our community. Beirut AI is the applied AI community in Lebanon. Our mission is to enable everyone to apply artificial intelligence. We host our events in order to give the community members access to the tools and knowledge to apply artificial intelligence. We have different types of events, from lectures, presentations, to technical workshops who are targeted more towards people who are looking for a hands-on experience. Beirut AI is part of a global community called City.AI. City.AI has more than 50 AI hubs around the world, and this number is growing every month. And so this allows us to connect with more people around the world and to achieve our mission not only on a local scale but also on a global scale. Quickly, I'd like to introduce the team behind Beirut AI. So, besides me, we have Nadine Sarraf and Ala Marouf, and together we organize and prepare for our events. Now I would like to introduce Azhar, who will be the moderator for tonight's panel, and he's going to take it from here.
Hi, good evening everybody. I'm Azhar. So I just want to tell you a little bit about the partners. We have NAR, who is one of the community partners. They support all the Beirut AI initiatives. We're hosted in a Beirut Digital District building, but in Flat6labs Beirut, so welcome to Flat6labs for anyone that's here for the first time. And Plugged In is, I'll introduce that in a second, it's something that I'm starting to help connect the ecosystem better. Christoph, next slide. So just an announcement, Flat6labs Beirut, the Cycle 3 applications are open. They offer up to 50K in cash, access to the MENA markets, you get your own co-working space, mentors, coaching, and lots of different perks and services. The deadline is in sort of around 3 weeks. So if you know anybody, or if you are thinking of an idea or something, head to the website flat6labsbeirut.com and apply. Okay, so today's agenda is about what is AI in terms of the future and where do we stand. We're going to break up today's section in terms of what is happening, kind of set what the current trends are. We'll look ahead to what can we do in terms of learning, how do we improve, what can we do here in Lebanon, and what does that all mean for the rest of us. In terms of what Plugged In is about, it's a platform for you to learn more about things that are relevant to you, and to connect to people that want to give back in different ways, to help inspire you, like our panel here. I think it's essential to have a healthy, collaborative environment with access to knowledge so everybody can develop faster here in the MENA region. And what we do is we create content that offers value based on the gaps and needs in the ecosystem. What we want to do is by listening and hearing from those within it, so that's you guys. That's why everybody that's here present today actually filled out a questionnaire online, and so that way we get to see what is important for you. Okay, so thanks everybody for attending today. We want you to participate. The interest in this event has been incredible, so I think that's what really makes a great community. Let's get started. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Elias. He has been in strategy and tech consulting for 11 years. He's also the chief operating officer before at WAMDA. He's been a strategy consultant before. He's managed WAMDA Research Lab. He's now working with Beirut Digital District. And he's also been a mentor and been involved with all the startups that are here in the ecosystem. So Speed, Flat6labs here, Smart ESSA. He's very active in the community. Our second speaker for the panel discussion is Basim. He has a background in software development and is the technical manager with over 10 years of industry experience. He's currently the technical director at SE Factory, but he also has a background previously as the head of the research and development division in a Beirut-based digital agency, and what they worked on was computer vision and machine learning research. And also, he was one of the founding members of Lumber Labs, which was Beirut's first hackerspace. And he's also running an online dev community, Mina Devs, which is a vibrant, active community of software development and technical managers. So if you haven't heard of any of those communities, try to connect to them. There's a lot of happening in those spaces. And last but not least, our third speaker for the panel is Dr. Hazim Haj. He's an AUB professor. He has over 20 years experience as a scientist and technical leader. He was a principal engineer at Intel Corporation, where he spent 12 years. He's won many different distinguished scholar awards, teaching awards at AUB, and also from his private sector background, 7 industry awards at Intel Corporation. So please give a round of applause to our speakers for this evening. Okay, so if we hit next, we're going to start off with a video just to set the scene of what is AI.
Artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. For anyone who's not a data scientist, the terms associated with computing's next big wave can be pretty confusing. But at the most basic level, the relationship between these 3 key concepts is fairly simple. Artificial intelligence refers to the broad category of computing in which a system is capable of learning directly from data, a capability made possible by the advent of data analytics and applied either through a set of rules that are evolved over time through human intervention with the system, or increasingly through the process of machine learning, in which the system expands its ability to process and use information without the need for additional human intervention. While the broader concept of artificial intelligence has been around since the 1950s, it was the introduction of machine learning in the 80s that brought the first real wave of significant advancements to the field. Then, as computational performance reached a tipping point in the last decade, a new wave of even more dramatic breakthroughs began to gather momentum. Deep learning is a branch or subset of machine learning that leverages those computational advantages and a set of new techniques, such as neural networks, to make sense of and learn from even larger amounts of data. The result has been an impressive acceleration in the progress of elusive artificial intelligence capabilities. Capabilities like image, speech, and natural language recognition that promise to have a significant positive impact on our everyday lives. The emergence of deep learning also serves as a reminder that the technology and techniques for achieving the full potential of artificial intelligence are not static, but will continue to evolve just like us.
Now that we have a better idea of what we're talking about in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning, maybe we can begin with some of the sort of leading into some of the applications. Who would like to kick off? Dr. Hazim, like what in your experience, like what are some applications that are especially exciting for you?
This is exciting to see this many people. So AI applications actually have spanned many fields. I think the most exciting to me is actually the medical field.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the medical field is probably one of the most exciting, where we're able to, detect medication for certain diseases, or just to give you a simple example, I'm working with a group of faculty at AUB. Some of them are doctors, some of them are chemists, and we're trying to actually come up with a blood test from a pregnant woman that can actually figure out whether, way early on, whether the fetus of the baby actually will have a congenital heart defect. And so this helps with major intervention actually very early on, and save the baby, and also probably, in some cases, the mom as well. I'll leave the floor for you guys.
So for me, I mean, the main value of AI is expanding the things that could be automated. So let's say for companies or for startups, we could automate things that have very strict rules. And by leveraging AI, now we can expand much more the things that are repetitive but cannot be put in strict rules.
I've seen applications of AI all over the place. I mean, back in 2013, we were working on sentiment analysis, and you might say, like, what is really sentiment analysis? It's basically when you have a sentence and you want to figure out if it's a positive, it has a positive feeling, negative feeling, and what are the applications of that? For example, in campaigns, we used to collect Twitter data, and when a campaign was running, we used to figure out whether people are reacting positively to a certain product, negatively to a certain product. Doing this effort manually is quite laborious and it's quite time intensive, but machine learning, for example, helps in automating these things and make it quite happen.
So, like, how has the AI field changed? And also in terms of what you've seen change, what do you predict might happen in the next 5 to 10 years?
In my opinion, 5 to 10 years is the period where machine learning is gonna settle down, like the dust is gonna settle, and this is where the actual progress in the field is gonna really boom. It's gonna stabilize. People are gonna be able to actually see the applications affect their lives. It's already affecting their lives on a daily basis too. Video recommendations, Netflix, Anghami, all of these companies who give you stuff on a daily basis, they are actually using machine learning, recommender systems and whatnot. So I think the field is going to stabilize, research is going to mature, and the applications are going to be much more visible and lesser hype in general. And
Dr. Hazim, how long back did you start working in the field of
1950. Just kidding. Actually, AI, it said in the video, it's been around for a long time, and I was surprised actually. I went back to actually say where did it start. It started actually even when AI as artificial intelligence, the machine making decisions for human life. It started with Aristotle, thinking I think therefore I'm a human. So those rules were set by philosophers actually, not even by engineers or computer scientists. And this evolution has been tremendous. I mean, it started from machines just doing some computations to machines actually making some prediction or some decisions. And what I think, I agree with Bassem that, the next 5-10 years, there will be, a stability time where actually I think machine learning becomes not just for, people who are experts in the field, but for everybody. And, I have a couple of, experiences. One of them kind of negative. I don't want to talk too much about it, but just basically, I went to visit the U.S. last summer and the summer before, and I wanted to just find a place to live, and so I go ask for rent, and the rent actually is twice as much as you would normally pay. And I asked I'm just going fast on the story, but long story short, I asked finally one of the managers of one of the apartment complexes, why are you charging me that much? And I'm expecting an explanation, right? And what would the manager answer? That's what the system is telling me. And so this is part of the AI evolution as well. AI is now, machines are making decisions for us. So what are the in addition to machine learning being there for everybody, there's still a lack of understanding of how machines are making decisions. And that, I think, is a critical problem. There's also a problem where AI actually still doesn't act like really I of the human, the intelligence part of the human. So even the video says it's a lot about data. But us humans, we don't operate by data. If I see you today, that's it. One time it's all for me. I need to remember you are Azhar, right? I don't need 150,000 images to run through my system to actually find and say this is Azhar. And so I think the future, in addition to the stability, machine learning becoming for everybody, Google Maps is an excellent example of helping us get to here. I think there's this human-machine symbiosis where I think it's machines working together with humans to actually solve human problems. Could be medical, could be other things, could be whatever it may be.
So I think what has really changed and why AI is today more of a hype is, first of all, there is much more data that AI can process and use. You have more processing power as well that can process this data, and the algorithms are also becoming more sophisticated to do that. As per for the predictions, so typically we're really bad at doing predictions. In the 50s, when machine learning started to develop, they were predicting that in 10 years they will be able to win in terms of chess, so a human player in chess. And it took until the late 90s to be able to do that. Also, when you read around publications, you can find in the same publication things telling you that no one will have a job and will have a basic income. Then another argument saying that always when you had new technological evolutions, you had more jobs created than ones that were going out. So I don't think we can really predict in the longer term what will happen. But I'm personally a believer in the human-machine collaboration and the machine augmenting humans per the things that can do better than us. So as the doctor was saying.
Yeah, that's something that we're going to come to in the last part of this discussion, some of the ethical implications and how human and machine can work better together. Talking about machine learning, what are some of the greatest advancement in machine learning in the sort of the past few years, and what are they doing, if you have any examples?
So in my opinion, deep learning has been evolving at a faster pace. Some of the advancements were on the algorithmic level, I think. Like the different architectures for different neural networks, the advancements in these areas, what type of data they can actually consume now, and the type of decisions they can make. I think there has been marginal let's say, advancements in terms of the accuracy of the output, the accuracy of the predictions, the speed of the learning rate. Dr. Hazem, I think, can really highlight these things. But I think these were the main areas where AI has been progressing on that, specifically on that front. On the application level, a lot more companies are adopting machine learning into their production pipelines, in the sense that they're introducing machine learning into their products. A lot of local companies, حتى بلبنان, they have been introducing machine learning into their products. We have a couple of examples with Hassan, Rodi, and their tuning device. This is it from my side.
So I think also like the advancements are in terms of the interface between the algorithms and people. So from natural language processing to image processing to video processing, etc., which is really interesting.
I liked Basim's point there, which was relating it to what some of the startups here in Lebanon are doing. Do you have any other, are there other companies and businesses and startups adopting? So
there is NAR, obviously, and you have also like Fig the app. Those are the ones and Neotic, for example, which is using it for the financial industry. And
do you see this as a trend that it's going to be adopted more? I mean, we have the general audience for Beirut AI events. There's a lot of workshops that go deep dive into technical topics.
Yes.
What do you think is needed in terms of the timeline it takes for companies to be able to find talent here?
So it is a capability that will not even talk about it later on. Like it will be like you have something enabled by tech. It will have AI algorithms in it. Now, in terms of talent, that's the main challenge. So today, even to find software developer, and Basim knows how hard it is. So in order to equip developers that have already graduated with AI capabilities, plus the new ones, and update all the curriculum, this is something that will take some time.
We're going to go a little bit deeper into the education side of it next, just because I think it's something that's relevant for everybody in this room. We can see the technology, there's been technologies in the past, but the question is, how can we adopt it? What can we do? What can we learn from it? The kind of, at this point, the way I wanted to phrase the debate was just to see like what's happening on a global scale, what's happening regionally, and what are we doing here in Lebanon, to kind of understand the trends that are going, and how is Lebanon keeping pace? Do you see that? I mean, you just mentioned quite a few startups that are using this technology. Do you see that trend growing? More
yes, certainly. But let's say even for NAR, when they wanted to secure interns in AI, they couldn't find them locally, and they had to get them from France. So it was Lebanese expatriates studying in France, and they brought them to support. So it's really today a big challenge. But also we shouldn't think only about developers when we talk about AI. So everyone should have some level of understanding of AI. And one of the most, even more than developers, developer and scientist would be also functional people that have a good understanding of AI, not necessarily being able to use it practically, but at least to know how they can automate their functions and match it with the right algorithms in order to work with the data scientist teams to make things happen.
To add a little bit on this, I think so. The companies abroad are a little bit. A little bit more advanced than where we are here in Lebanon, simply because the applications are wider and the industries that machine learning has been tackling is much broader. For example, here you see machine learning masan in recommender systems, in music, in Seas, for example, a company here in BDD, they are using it to recommend, to find cars, second-hand cars, based on certain filters that you provide. But machine learning abroad is being used for fraud detection, it's being used in insurance, profiling customers, it's being used in banking, it's being used in all of these industries that are yet to be disrupted here in Lebanon. So I think the applications are going to come. We're a little bit far behind. But if we keep an eye on these other industries where we can introduce machine learning, this is where a lot of the action is going to happen soon.
I think, Elias, you made a really good point. I just wanted to just break out for a second into the audience. This is one of the first Beirut AI events that is open to also the non-technical audience. So I just wanted to poll the audience. If you want to raise your hand if you're not from a technical background and you're just more interested in AI. Okay.
Wow,
so we have so it's still like it's great on one side of it because the people that are practicing it want to know more about it, but I think this is one of the challenges that we should try to address. One of the things that also we're trying to do with this discussion is this is just the beginning of the discussion. This is just to open up some of the questions, get people interested. What we'll do is we'll put some of this content online so that more people can watch and catch up and keep this debate going. And I think that was a very good point in terms of it's not just for technical people. One of the things I wanted to add was that I recently came back from Dubai and they have various government accelerators in an incubator space called Area 2071. They have big vision for the future. And the UAE is investing heavily into its accelerators and incubators. So how can Lebanon as a neighbor sort of compete in terms of that aspect of it?
Can we?
Can I? Oh, yeah, just actually. Actually, I'm going to ask the question maybe slightly differently. Bassem, you've been in computer vision. There's a company just south of the border. Okay, the company's name is Mobileye. Mobileye is maybe the leader in the world in terms of vision systems for self-driving vehicles. So my question actually is, why not here? I mean, so Dubai is heavily investing. You've heard about the self-driving taxi, the drone, self-driving drone. So they have actually a ministry of AI. Saudi Arabia, same thing. They have the robot lady who became a citizen. My question is actually, they're working, they're doing, but why not here? I think actually, I'm an academician here in the Lebanon context, and I see it around. Some of them are here. Some of the students, we actually, and I worked abroad, and I taught abroad. I taught at some of the top U.S. institutions. I still do that when I go to the U.S. We have the smartest people here. And some of us actually have, us, I'm saying students. We've gone and spent time in the U.S. and they were impressed with who we are. So I see actually absolutely, vehemently no reason why we cannot compete globally. I think what we are, personally, what we are really missing is a cultural issue. I think we're really, I think Bassem said it earlier, or yes, I forgot. But it's that working together. I think if we somehow figure out a way of moving out of saying it's all about me and I and what, how I can shine, and then thinking, what can we do, collectively, I think we can do amazing things. And to me, that's really the barrier. It helps to have more infrastructure and a whole ecosystem, but I think we in Lebanon carry a burden of actually pushing this forward. It's not going to happen, if we wait for, the money or the ecosystem to come to us.
100%. To add a little bit more on this, I mean, like we always look at Dubai as if في عندنا كتير government initiatives coming from Dubai, but to disrupt a certain ecosystem, it can come from two places. Either the startups, the private sector can do this disruption, or it comes from a gap backed by the government. The UAE are really good at creating this hype and buzz that the government is doing a lot of these initiatives to back the ecosystems and whatnot. But a lot of the really amazing driving force behind a lot of innovation is actually happening from the private sector and research institutions, to be more specific. So.
Just to add this, I mean, Dubai is definitely doing more things than here, but also we should take things with caveat because they're really good in terms of PR and augmenting a lot and with a lot of announcements of things that not always materialize.
And yeah, I just wanted to add to sort of the countries that are investing the most. It's China, it's the US.
Yes.
The country you mentioned, south of the border, they're coming up third in terms of that. One of the points that you mentioned earlier, I think it's quite relevant in terms of one of the benefits of Lebanon is there are Lebanese people that go to study abroad. I mean, if you tried to catch a flight in the last 2 weeks, I don't think you could grab a seat. And this was the students going to the UK, to the US, and all over the world. So in terms of like Nara again as an example, there are Lebanese that go abroad to study. What can we do in terms of encourage them to come back and utilizing that knowledge that maybe, I mean, AUB, they have a program already, other universities look to start one, but in terms of that example you gave, I mean, can you just shed some more light on how they're able to do that?
Yeah, so for a while, since the ecosystem started developing, and with also the crisis that happened globally and in the Gulf, some people were coming back to the region. So that helped a bit. So having those focused programs where they feel they can come back and add value would definitely be good. But I mean, there's nothing today that will attract them specifically, unless we are able to continue the momentum that was started so far with the ecosystem.
It's really a long way to go so that we can become this attractive place where people come back, and but a lot of them are coming back to start their own enterprises here. And actually today I was reading a post by Samer. Sorry, I forgot his family name. He has a newsletter called Alex, the CFO, and he writes about Samer. So Azar, 100%. Thank you. And he has written today exactly about this. And whenever the brains leave the country, what remains are somewhat people who can't do much, maybe a little bit of the corrupt, but it's also an opportunity for those who have that flair, right, to thrive because they don't have a lot of competition. And a lot more people are understanding this. And if you see a lot of the Lebanese entrepreneurs who have made a lot of money and they have made a lot of companies, they went to these developing markets because they have very little competition. I mean, go to Europe and try to compete. Good luck with that. Starting your own enterprise, yes, there is infrastructure, yes, maybe there is a little bit more funding, but here there's much less competition and the market is open for you to do whatever you want with it. So yeah, maybe this could be quite attractive for a lot of people to come back here. Funding is necessary. What BDD is doing in terms of the community, the marketing, the outreach, I think it's going to attract a lot of very interested talent to come back and start their own enterprises here.
Also, Dr. Hazim, you teach at AUB data science courses. How many people are part of your each semester? How many students do you teach?
Good question. I've been at the UB since 2008, and I started since day one basically teaching a course that still remains with the name of data mining, but it's evolved to and blurs the line with machine learning. And even before I arrived there, I mean, everybody knows, those who are in the technology, AI is, we just said, from the 1950s. So we had faculty members before I even got there from a long time ago who were teaching machine learning and AI in some way or another. However, people I mean, the public now, when you say machine learning or AI, a lot of people know or have heard of it. They, oh yeah, I know what this is, artificial, and we see movies and all this stuff. However, we have until recently we don't do marketing for our courses. So students may not even know that this particular course exists or what this particular course even teaches. And a funny story actually. I took a leave for 1 year to the US. I come back, and again, that was after 5 years being at an AB, and I go and come back. And one of the students comes to me and says, it's a shame. And I say, what's a shame? He says, it's a shame, no one here at the AUB teaches machine learning, no one teaches deep learning. And I say, what do you mean no one teaches machine? I've been teaching this course and he was one of my students actually. Taken from another course. I says, I've been teaching this for 5 years. And he says, really? And then, and he just didn't know, right? And then, a few months later go by, and I see him again in the hallway, or a semester goes by, I see him again, and he says, I want to say thank you. And I said, for what? He said, for bringing deep learning to AUB. I said, I didn't bring this. So it's been there. But one question I have not answered yet is, how has it been for the students? So as a result of awareness. So I remember actually early on, I also teach an advanced course. And for both of these, graduate and advanced graduate, I actually got to a point where if I don't have 8 students in the class would cancel. So I would go send emails to, business school, computer science, anyone interested, and I'll get, people who would venture into the course and take it, and, they finally realize they love it and so on. But now, the awareness is much higher. Actually, so I don't have to go actually, sell it. The course gets full right away. We're as a graduate course, for example, we're supposed to have, a limit of around 15 people. It's actually 30 people. Last year, we introduced an undergraduate machine learning course for the first time. All these machine learning were graduate courses. We introduced machine learning for undergraduate for the first time. Again, it went way over capacity. We hit 45 very quickly, and then we had to stop. Basically I'm seeing, there's a public awareness, and there's also a higher level of education. So what used to be, again, going back to the point that Mazen said, machine learning becomes mainstream, right? It's not just, this advanced technology that people would not know about. So from an education perspective, people are more aware. People are actually more educated. There's tons of online courses out there. There are people who come into my class, some of them are here, and they could easily embarrass me with information they know and I don't know. And so it is now, going forward, we are expecting people at the undergraduate level to become knowledgeable and proficient in machine learning. It's not just the graduate, expertise that people will learn. And we're seeing this actually probably at other universities, in Lebanon, that's propagating. So this ivory tower education that used to be for those who go graduate now is trickling down to undergraduate, and even starting from the first introductory course that is Python, and then you start using Python for data science and what have you.
Actually, that's an interesting point. So, is any of the students in the audience want to just explain what their interest was, what drove them to study more on this field? And if not, Alaa's going to volunteer. So Alaa, she's part of the Beirut community. Christophe introduced her earlier. She's very active in terms of not just learning herself, but actually, being part of the community to do that. So where did you first decide or realize this was something that was exciting for you?
Actually, an honest answer, before I took the data mining course with Dr. Hazem, I had an idea what machine learning is, what AI, but I thought, okay, let me try it in a course or something, but I didn't imagine this is going to be my path. So once I took the course, in a very fast pace, because in the course we had also data camp, Python, and research, a lot of things, with very short time, I felt like I can really do great stuff, and I understood the theory, plus I was able to practice it. it. So I actually loved it, and I decided that I want to do it for my master's thesis, and I want to continue with it. I think the challenge is that many people see AI as like it's a very vague concept. We're interested to know about it, but maybe it's so hard to achieve. But once we try it, and once we understand, not just like it's not a good practice to just do the online course and those 2 lines of Python and okay, I have a model running. It's good also to do the research, to do the theory, to do the math. Actually, I wasn't a big enthusiast of those stuff, but once I took the data mining and the advanced data mining course, I understood that it's a mix of both theory, practice, and I think anybody can achieve it. It needs some basics, maybe prerequisites, but it's not that far-fetched, and I am actually enjoying it.
That's great. Does anybody else want to add a little bit about their experience or what got them interested in the field?
The previous year was my last year at AOST. I'm a management information systems student. We take like a wide view from all the sectors, a little bit of web development. We took one course just C++. And the last year actually, they added a new course, data mining course. We worked with Waka software for predictive analytics. And when I took that course, we took one course before about click view and descriptive analytics. And once I took those courses, I really liked the path, and I started to...
also people in your course, are they interested the same like you? Or?
Not so many, but overall, yes. And we were like 9 students in the class, and like 5 people were really interested.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm trying now to improve my skills, but I wanted to go to web development before.
So what made you switch?
Yeah, but when I went to data mining, I found myself like this is a better career for me. So I'm really confused where to start from now to improve myself.
That's really the next topic will be more about like discussion about education. I just wanted to open the floor up again. On the first part of this discussion was about the current state, trends, what's happening in the AI field. We have a lot of questions from your feedback. Does anybody want to share anything related to this? The next part will be about education, and the final part will be more about the ethical and human versus machines and some of the dealing with some of those issues. Any questions in the audience?
Actually,
Please.
Okay, so...
Introduce yourself.
Okay. I don't like this. So, I'm Nadine Abbas. I got a PhD degree from EUB, and Dr. Hazem Haj was my advisor. I knew him we've been working together, or he was my supervisor since 2008. And we're still working on research. Well, what I want to really add is that I didn't know about data mining. I joined the EUB. And then I knew about the course. I knew about Dr. Haj and his interests, research interests. So I was like, I want to try this. And I took the data mining course. And I can say that data mining is a course that it can really change the way you think and change your... it will add value to your path in research and even in your daily life, like the way you think about things, and how the things are processed and how you analyze some data. Do you see where data is important, when I can just throw some data, how to clean the data, how to process it, and everything. And then what to get out of this data is very important. So I have a minor in machine learning, and I was able to apply machine learning in communications. My major is in communication. So I took part of the data mining course, and I applied it in communications and heterogeneous networks. So I think this was mainly a huge part in my thesis. What I would like also to add is that I'm interested in data mining, that every year, every semester, every fall, I guess, every fall, you give the data mining and spring the advanced data mining. So related to your question regarding the topics that are covered in university, during this course, they have to work on a certain project, and they work at PhD students might work alone on a certain project or a certain topic, and by the end of the course you will be presenting your work, And you can see that they are using machine learning for different applications. Like, I'm interested, actually, every semester I ask him to invite me just to attend those presentations. And for example, last course was the advanced data mining. I saw many applications like in biomedical, like from different field of studies. And this semester, I think one of the students are like civil engineers, right? 2 or more than, they are civil engineers. So it's not related only to electrical or data. It's any data and you can apply it, just have the data. And I think it will be applied anywhere. It's not like specific type of application or programming or anything. So that's it. Thank you.
I just want to bring the floor back to Bassem, because it's one of the things that you mentioned in terms of AI is actually the technology, but it's also disrupting a lot of industries. And so how do you feel in terms of the different industries, how would they approach sort of understanding AI and where they could advance in that field?
One of the major prerequisites for using AI or applying the algorithms is having a large amount of data. That's a very important prerequisite. If you don't have the data, forget AI, forget machine learning. So I think the hype now will cause the industries to feel a little bit of pressure. Why aren't we exploring this field? Why aren't we tapping into this? How can we increase our bottom line by tapping into machine learning? How can we understand more our clients by tapping into machine learning? So the hype will create pressure for these large companies to actually tap into the research. One of the most in-demand jobs currently is data science. A lot of people are asking for data scientists. We as SE Factory, being involved with local companies who are hiring software engineers, a lot of them ask us for machine learning talent. We are actually exploring at SE Factory opening up a master class to cover machine learning and a subset of data science, data wrangling, data cleanup, and all of that stuff. So the industries are actually asking for it right now. The big ones are still exploring how it could benefit them. And I think any industry that has a large amount of data they want to process, machine learning will definitely play a role in that.
Sure.
Sorry, but this is interesting. So, how are these industries exploring these? The whole, concept of these technologies. Are you doing the awareness, the training?
No, not necessarily. The hype is doing it all by itself. So imagine Al-Futtaim, right? Al-Futtaim Group, yes. the group owning. The chain of Carrefour and City Center and whatnot, they are recruiting data scientists now. And I've been approached by them, for example, for a job at a certain point. Okay. So imagine even this industry, right? It's involved in real estate and whatnot. They're recruiting data scientists. They want to understand their business better. So the hype has caused them, they felt the pressure. Now they want to recruit people to come in and tap and explore. We have this huge amount of data. What can we do with it? Yes. Right? So the hype is causing them to move, and I think this is really good. In the container terminal industry where I used to work 3 years ago, this is one of the most data-intensive industries ever, and they've been using machine learning. I've been using machine learning there without even realizing it. Optimizing the container field, optimizing the loading of the ship, and taking off containers. It all happens with data and machine learning.
Yes, I agree. But my question was like, you are the experts, and you have the industries in Lebanon, let's say, who are not the experts, and they still want to explore this, understand where they could benefit, how they could benefit, if it makes sense with them or not. How is this link being done between the experts, regardless of recruiting, data scientists?
This is one of them. This event, I think one of its purposes is to actually do this bridge connection. I think the purpose of also Beirut AI is to also create this bridge, right? But I think what's easiest for companies, especially the large ones, is to recruit, right? They can afford to recruit data scientists. They can actually consult with PhDs. And sometimes companies even they give grants to universities for specific research. I know for a fact that one of my previous clients used to do that with MIT and AUB as well. They did some research on scheduling for their staff and employees and whatnot. So there are a lot of bridges. Startups, they can come into these events. Bigger companies, they hire.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah, it's good. So actually, that's a very smooth transition into what the next part of the discussion was about. In fact, we've started to touch upon some of those things. We're just going to show you another video, and then we're going to leap back into pretty much the same conversation that we just started here.
Our goal is to build intelligent machines to help people in their daily lives. What makes us intelligent is our ability to learn. And this is what we're trying to reproduce in machines. And to some extent, we get inspiration from biology. What we can do with current technology is build networks of simulated neurons on the order of magnitude of the brain of a mouse, let's say. So the way we train our machine, we show a bunch of images of, say, breeds of dogs, and for each image, we tell it what it is.
We want the machine to be able to learn to perform the tasks. The more we show them examples, the better they get.
And what's very interesting is that after a while, it can do this with a new dog it's never seen before. It's able to exhibit superhuman performance on a particular task. So how can we help people's life with this?
Friends 937, newsfeed. Lindsay Russell updated her cover photo yesterday at 10:29 p.m. This image may contain outdoor, cloud, foliage, flattened, tree.
In the future, we'll be able to give a complete description of the image.
The two people happy? Are they sad? Are they holding hands with one another? It's this kind of comment that a human would make.
We have systems in the lab that are able to do this, and they will be deployed over the next few years. Artificial intelligence systems are going to be an extension of our brains, the same way cars are an extension of our legs. They're not going to replace us. They're going to amplify everything we do, augmenting your memory, giving you instant knowledge. And they're going to allow us to concentrate on doing things that are properly human.
So the purpose of that video actually was to show, one, sort of making the understanding around artificial intelligence more accessible. And the other one, just to show that the video was created by a tech company, Facebook. And so one of the things is that if you want to learn AI, if you want to practice it in the field, we have the FANGs, which is Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. They're investing heavily in AI. And then you have sort of the rest of the private sector that are trying to compete with whatever talent is left over. We have universities as an opportunity to learn and develop your skills. There's a lot of online resources, things like Coursera and Udacity. The most popular courses are artificial intelligence, data mining, machine learning. And then also, similar to sort of online learning, there's specific training sectors such as SE Factory that Bassem is part of. So what I wanted to discuss was where, for the audience here, where's the best place for them to start? What's something that they can do? And what is the sort of, where do you think is taking the lead and some of the issues around where to begin? Who'd like to take it away?
Sure, I can start. Online courses, I think, would be the ideal place to start. I mean, coming to these events, they need to be supplemented with theory. Theory is super important. This field can easily be a black box where a lot of magic happens. You just input something, you get something out of it. There's a lot of mysticism around it. A lot of the media is not really doing a good job in explaining what this field actually is. So the theory will help in circumventing this problem. Mm-hmm. And I think Coursera, DeepLearning.ai are really doing a good job in providing really beginner-focused courses. You don't really need you think you need a lot of math, just basic understanding of linear algebra. You don't even need to understand linear algebra. In the course, they even explain the concepts that you need. So basically, high school mathematics, some understanding of programming, and you can jump on your first machine learning course. Of course, you're not going to be an expert. You're not going to come and find a job as a machine learning engineer or a scientist and whatnot, but you'll at least develop the understanding and maybe sufficient understanding for you to make business decisions on how you can use machine learning in your company or on your job, or maybe just to optimize your personal life. So I think online courses are really a good start. Second thing comes right behind them are maybe university courses or training courses like the ones we provide at SE Factory. We're not yet providing those. We're going to provide them soon. They're master classes targeting people who work in the industry already, software engineers, developers who want to learn this specific area. We'll be covering that. And maybe even going back to university and doing a master's degree would be ideal if this is something you would like to specialize in, maybe even considering a PhD. Dr. Hazem can cover this more.
I agree. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is online courses. And I'm going to use an example and a statement, actually. The example is from my kid. I mention him frequently when I talk about new generation. He's now 14-year-old. In the summer, actually, he said, "Dad, are you willing to pay $11 for me to take a course on ethical hacking?" And I say, I'll give you $100 if you study it. So he actually went on to one of the online sources, which I think, based on, and I think the audience here, people probably have experienced it more than I am. I've looked at it. Udemy is one source actually that seems to provide a good extensive. So he went on Udemy and he's doing this. So, and if he can do it, he's 14-year-old. I think anyone in this room definitely can do it. Anyone who's in the industry can do it. And like Bassem said, the courses and the online sources are tremendous. That, if you don't know something, it's being mentioned. You go, to the next window and look it up and on Google or Bing or whatever, and find an answer. The other side of this actually is maybe not just a suggestion, but maybe it's actually something that people ought to do, because what I thought actually my son, 14-year-old, doing what seems to be an exception now, I think it will become the norm. I think people, kids I should say, in schools, at 12-year-old kids, they will be prolific programmers. They will be prolific machine learning knowledgeable or ethical hackers or whatever it may be, because there's so many online sources and they're curious and they use technology like, definitely like no way I ever imagined it would be used. So I think actually online courses is a good place to start and maybe a must place to go. Not just a good place to go. And actually, I can leave it to the others here. But if you want to actually become more proficient, I think it's a good idea to go for a degree. So do a master's, and if you want to actually become even more prolific, some of the people who are doing a PhD up there, then go for a PhD. And there's a lot of places, a lot of excellent places here and abroad that you could pursue that. But I think online, and I'm happy to hear there's local training, because not all of us, again, learn the same way. Some of us go to a website, read, and we're perfectly fine. Other people, like I'm going to use my kid as the example of the new generation. Maybe you guys fit in the same new generation. For him to learn, he likes to go YouTube. I like to go to a website, to read about the same thing. So he likes to have a video. There could be others actually, and I'm also, if I were, right now learning, I'd maybe go taking a training session, because I'd like to have, Bassem there and, just, making a few jokes and maybe guiding me along the way. It makes me feel better and I'm learning better. So I don't think there's totally one good answer, but definitely online is a good start and maybe a must go to, but also depending on what people comfort levels and desires, they have many options.
So in addition to this, one way of learning to complement also the online courses would be to do some experiments and try for your business, let's say, to automate a simple part by using also off-the-shelf tools like Google and Amazon are developing more and more tools and putting them accessible for all developers in order to experiment with AI without having necessarily deep knowledge in it. So that would be a good way to experiment as well.
Yeah, I think this is one of the future part of the advancement is to make AI more accessible. So there's a lot of solutions that are available off the shelf, and Bassem, you mentioned there's a few of those as well. And then to actually build your own, you have to go through like what is a data scientist is something that's not really defined yet, and you have to have a PhD and a strong technical background and a strong philosophical background and really like understand a lot of specialisms. So that was a really good example in terms of you don't necessarily have to know all the technical stuff. You have to know what if something's already out of the box. But if you are pursuing it is worthwhile specializing and going a lot deeper into that. One of the points that you actually raised was something that I wanted to follow up with, which was the room here. I think the youngest people are university students. What can we do in terms of the STEM education in the country as a whole to support more coding, to support better people like pursuing artificial intelligence related subjects like data mining, like data science related stuff? You mentioned that your son, so 12, 14, was able to do that.
I think we all, own part of this. I mean, going back to what I said, why not here? I mean, it's a cultural thing. I think, maybe I should start by myself. I should maybe hold myself more responsible to volunteer my time, go around schools, educate of what kids can actually do, and hopefully we can convince schools also to be open to allowing the kids to go beyond, a strict regimen of actually what they can or cannot learn. And I think forums like this one is an excellent one, and maybe these forums could be propagated to schools, not just here at BDD. Maybe they would be more like STEM, along the line of STEM AI forums. That's traveling around different schools in Lebanon. That would be a nice, amazing concept actually to say we're having this Beirut AI bus and we're just gonna drive around Lebanon and have these discussions at different schools and get the kids excited, get the kids educated, get the schools on board to allow the kids to actually learn and explore and try certain things like Ilyas was saying.
And also, I think that currently the education systems are quite rigid and developed more to, for typical employees, let's say, they would imagine that to become an engineer, you need this certain skill set, and they will build this skill set along the way for you to have all your life the same career. They are not into the new approaches, experimentation, where each person will have to develop by himself a new skill set every couple of years, or even less, change jobs every couple of years, etc. So there is a new mindset of exploration, of learning to learn rather than learning the rules and then applying them to get there. And this is something that will require a major shift in the education system. And meanwhile, you have alternative education systems with extracurricular activities, with programs that you take during summer, etc. Where like in BDD, we had 4 of those programs with Teens Who Code, Little Engineer, Coder Maker, and Sherpa, and also the Makers Hub, Kids Genius. So those are also tools that can complement the gaps that traditional education system are not providing until they change.
Actually, I should, just to be fair also to AUB, I just want to mention, you reminded me that I know that there's a workshop that gets held every summer for high school kids, and so that they can learn computing and other experiences. There's web development, there's coding, there's it's sorry.
engineering for good, so it was like a workshop with hardware, software.
Yeah, there's also that. There's also, I mean, there's, you know, I'll let talk about this, but there's also these, I'm trying to remember what they're exactly called. They're not called workshops. No, it's not workshops. It's kind of schools or, you know, something, summer schools.
Yeah, this is
There's also that new things that are happening in engineering, but this was something actually that the computer science department holds every summer. It's during the summer, so the kids can, you know, any age 12 to whatever, you know, and come and take it. So, and I suspect other universities may be doing something similar, and these are, I think, also occurs. And I think I can mention about what they've done in engineering this year. I think with Elias maybe also was part of this process.
Yeah, so during the summer it was like around 2 weeks. So the theme was engineering for good. So not just to do coding, but for a purpose. So first the students had some courses from doctors about environment, how to benefit pollution, the problems in Lebanon, all those stuff. And they had social skills also development. And then the Raspberry Pi, so it's hardware and it uses Python. So they learned Python, they learned hardware circuits. And at the end they developed a product to solve a certain problem. And they developed the whole business model, the whole presentation, and they had winners. And some actually pitched them in competitions later. So they developed this small project during these 2 weeks further. So I personally taught some sessions during it, and it was I was so amazed by the capability of students. Like some had no idea about what programming is, and at the end of the program, they were building circuits and discovering things on their own. And it's really nice because sometimes, like even I know this, but I wouldn't have this idea in mind, and somebody very young would have an amazing idea. So I think giving the opportunity to kids, they might amaze us with things that we can't even do ourselves.
Yeah,
I think it's really great.
Can you pass to Obaida regarding the 100 days of coding?
Yeah. What about it?
Applying yourself on a daily basis as
Okay, so there is an online, what do we call it?
Challenge?
Yeah, like online challenge. So for everyone who want to learn machine learning to pledge to himself that he's going to learn at least 1 hour every day, anything related to machine learning, whether it is online course or coding or anything. It's an online, it's for a famous one on YouTube called Siraj. He has now like 1 million subscriptions or something like that. And a lot of people are participating in it, and by the end of the year it will end, something like that. So a lot of people actually started learning machine learning only for the challenge. And it's simple, just at least 1 hour a day. You don't need to waste a lot of time. Just read a book, watch online video courses, anything you can do. It's really it's really good if you want to start. It will be.
You're done with 100 days?
No, actually, I stopped after 10 days.
I'd like to say that although you're giving real importance to online courses and stuff, I think it's actually had even more of an impact. I'm starting university recently, that's my 2nd week, and almost everyone I have talked to and who is interested even a little bit in computers in any way has taken some kind of course. Some of them have took like really important courses, things that even in 2nd or 3rd year computer science they're not taking. So I think that the online courses give more like kind of trust to the person who's learning than actual real life stuff. Somehow the internet seems to be like more personal and trustworthy than real life. It's like
can we actually turn that into a discussion topic? So
yes. So
one of the benefits of online learning is actually it includes artificial intelligence in terms of personalized learning. And this debate on the education, we kept it in terms of what we thought would be most valuable for the audience here is like how can you improve your skills and your knowledge in the space. But actually there's a whole discussion about the impact of AI on the education industry and sector itself and how it might end up disrupting that. it was interesting because one of the recommendations across the panel was like online resources is a good way to start. With AI, do you see that if we go a bit deeper into this topic, what are the kind of benefits you can get from personalized learning? And yeah, how like what kind of how could that be integrated in sort of the education process of learning?
Sure. I think the most perfect person to answer this is Hassan, who's busy with his phone now. I put him on the spot. I'm not sure they want to talk about like. I'm not sure they're ready to talk about their product, but I think it affects it. Like it's in the realm of a little bit how machine learning can impact your education, right? And I think there is room for that, but I'm not sure that machine learning is ready for it to be your private tutor yet. Okay, I think it can maybe recommend some things for you to explore based on your previous progress. It can give you paths to explore. I'm not 100% sure it can give you. It can build a learning curriculum for you and guide you through it. Okay. I've been exploring this particular space in music a little bit. And I didn't find someone who's actually, or a product that's actually, because I wanted to learn how to play the electric guitar, right? Okay. This is education. And I don't want to hire a private tutor. And the machine learning comes to mind because it's a great way for it to listen to your music and give you some recommendations on what you can do with it. Mm-hmm. There's no one in that space now. Maybe this is an opportunity for a company to develop that, right? In terms of Coursera, and whatnot, the best thing that they do is that they give you similar courses that you can take, but they can give you more guidance on that in terms of education. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the technology is there yet. Maybe Dr. Hazem has another perspective on it. I don't know.
No, I agree. Actually, I think AI for education is probably lacking. There are these things that actually that it recommends certain things. There are people who've tried to use it to, solve certain mathematical problems interactively and certain things. But overall, to think of actually AI to the point, what I think I like the way Bassem put it, to become your own tutor and your educator, and maybe the safe haven of interaction and education, that not just something where you're just listening to a course, but actually you're really getting trained as a coach. I think I'm not very aware. I'm sure there's some initiatives in there, but it hasn't trickled down to mainstream. We still, the best thing we do is learning management system where we have these things online and people use them, but not, with AI. Somebody wanted to say something up there? You wanted to say something earlier, or
you?
No. Sorry, I thought there was a question earlier. Okay.
Who is
both of you?
Take it.
Thanks. So, back to Bassem's point, I think learning or improving in anything comes from three points: having access to good, clean data, knowing your skill gaps, and then having quality training material that's relevant to you to be able to learn and improve on those gaps. So if you think of this as a loop and you run it quickly enough and fast enough, you're gonna be able to improve and train. Now that's not to say that this is a very simple task. For instance, if you look at companies that have been trying to solve this problem, like I met recently with Alt School. It's a primary school in San Francisco that so far raised $170 million in equity, and it's founded. I met their CTO, who has 12 years of experience leading Google search. So they're the best people in AI in the world with so much funding, and they still didn't manage to figure out this problem. They divided they figured out bits and pieces of it, of course. But they divide the problem into two pieces. First of all, knowing where you are in your development cycle as a kid, and then recommending the materials for you. And they're still working on the first part of it, just to give you an idea of how tough the problem is.
Just a small note. I just remembered when we were talking about schools. There's a school in Lebanon, actually. It's called Eastwood International College. They opened a coding class, like an official coding class. I'm not sure, and in the future what it means, but it's good to know that in the school system, because we're talking that yes, most schools are rigid, but there are a few, like this one, for example, which is quite flexible to open such a class. Thank you.
Again, the hype and the peer and the pressure is making this change. Parents want their children. I mean, look at Teens Who Code in the summer.
Right.
They've had like 100 kids running around BDD just because their parents wanted them to go and learn how to code. Yeah. Their parents don't know anything about coding, right? But they just heard it, and this is something that
is
important. Let's get our kids into it. So keep an eye on Teens Who Code. I'm currently helping Noor finalize her product, and she's gonna. It's basically online learning for schools where they can, the system goes into the classroom and the students can actually do live coding and learn how to code in classrooms and get some feedback on.
Yeah, I think that's the important bridge that she's making is from doing it as an extracurricular sort of a private entity to actually integrating in schools so that it can benefit the entire population.
Just to add 2 points. So one on the parents' awareness. So I feel that this is still not mainstream. It's still within a certain social class and certain type of people who work in certain jobs. Like in Teens Who Code, what was interesting during the ceremony, so I heard one father talking with his son, explaining him how the metal detector in the Sarai works. So I mean, it's typically parents who already are into the space and they want to make sure that their kids are aware. At least this is one observation. Another one on online courses, I think the main issue is to keep engagement high. So the drop rates are phenomenal after 1 or 2 courses, at least from personal experience. So and this is where exploring different models, and we were talking about this a bit before, between online and offline and blended learning might lead to better engagement levels.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary. I think you need to have, even with what we're doing in this space, we're trying to create content for online to keep the discussion going, but it wouldn't be possible without you guys coming here and actually representing the wider audience and actually contributing and kind of bringing in things that we wouldn't be able to think of. The same way that you described the students as part of that program. You're able to think of things and we can sort of hive mind kind of the solutions and what we think, which kind of leads us into the next part of the discussion.
AI, artificial intelligence, has some dangerous connotations, right? So I like to reframe it not as AI, but IA, intelligence augmentation. And I think we're going to see IA infuse all elements of our life. It's going to infuse everything from a physician standpoint about how I do a smarter workup and diagnosis. And when I figure out a condition you might have, I'll be able to do a much smarter, more cost-effective, and more timely therapy, given how many mistakes we have, how many misdiagnoses we do, how big a problem medical mistakes are. I think AI or IA can play a really impactful role. It'll be something you have embedded in all your smart devices that will help track your health and give you empowerment as a consumer and a patient to take care of your own health and that of your family. And it's already starting to happen with Watson having gone to medical school. We can access the API for Watson with our mobile devices. They're partnering with the Apples of the world and the Medtronics. And I think it really has the opportunity to shift healthcare from the practice of medicine to the real science of medicine. So robotic surgery, even remotely, isn't science fiction. Companies like Intuitive Surgical have had advanced surgical robots for over a decade. They require often the surgeon to be there in the booth doing the procedure. It's even been demonstrated that can happen across the planet. The real opportunity as we kind of fuse AI, imaging, sensors, is in some cases for some of these robotics to become semi-autonomous, to de-skill advanced surgery so that in a remote village with the right robotics, maybe a local country doctor can facilitate and enable more of a complex surgery that can never happen based on where the patient may be, whether it's on space station or Mars or in remote India, for example. So robotics blended with AI, blended with analytics and smart imagination, I think can really transform healthcare.
So that video was actually just to kind of break the pattern a little bit and just give you some kind of visual examples to help you imagine, like, what is this future? What is the future with artificial intelligence and robots and machines, and how is it going to change the world as we know it? So in terms of like some of the things you've heard, what are the kind of things that you're tired of hearing when it comes to AI?
I am.
You're tired of hearing, so like, or something that you want to dispel that, you know, like there's a lot of fear related to it, and there's a lot of application side which doesn't quite match up. What?
I don't think there's anything I would say I'm tired of hearing. The one thing I would say actually, maybe it's not tired of hearing, but I sense, even, I mean, when I teach now, there's a little bit of you know, maybe at the high level confusion of what is AI, what is machine learning, what is data mining, what is data science, and you know, and even the video earlier from Intel, where, you know, I used to work, I think this was presented in a specific context, and I think their definition is actually slightly erroneous, because machine learning is not all about learning from data. And actually one of the challenges forward is figuring out how machines can learn from little data and more from, you know, knowledge from, you know, the way, you know, humans actually know. So I think, you know, if I were to say, the first thing is actually understanding what is the difference, because if you understand what's the difference, also it helps you set yourself towards what you want to achieve. So I think Elias mentioned earlier, you know, it's not just about learning technology, it's not just about somebody who's engineering or who's a computer scientist. It's everybody, and I think, you know, I want to use the word data science for a second to say, you know, data science to me is an area where, you know, you need the expert in a particular specialty before you need, you know, the technologist or the computer scientist, because you're trying to solve a particular problem. It could be a music problem, it could be a medical problem. You need more that, you know, person, the content expert of that, so that if you bring the technology and that technology tells you, you know, if you eat, you know, tandoori chicken, the stock price is going to go up. You're a financial guy. You know, tandoori chicken eating that has nothing to do with the financial stock. So an algorithm that's predicting stock price going up because of eating tandoori chicken, you know, if I just have the technologists, they have no idea of what it's supposed to be used for. You know, you're basically having, you know, misuse and probably causing even harm if that person ends up, you know. So I think it's important, like I said, I don't think it's a question of, you know, me being tired of anything, but it's more of actually recognizing and educating ourselves actually what's the difference between those things and their usage. So the data science is one where you have the expert in a particular field and you have the technology. Machine learning is more the core of actually the algorithms themselves and the machine learning to do certain tasks. Data mining is kind of a terminology that has a gray description with machine learning, but overall data mining is meant to be using any tools you want to extract some meaningful patterns from the data that's useful. So it's kind of a cousin of data science. And then artificial intelligence, in my mind, is kind of like the bigger umbrella of, you know, developing technologies that ultimately have machines mimic intelligence. And that intelligence does not have to be, by the way, human intelligence. It could be a plant intelligence. I mean, plants themselves have intelligence. So I think I spend time actually, you know, talking about this now, the first thing in the class, and it's obvious that, you know, people who, you know, have taken maybe online courses and other things, these things get confusing, right? So that's, I think, one thing. Going deeper into a little bit more technical, there's another level of confusion. When I say, what's machine learning? Okay, and somebody will say it's actually, and I actually get frustrated a little bit with my own students, because by the end of the course, they're still making sometimes the same mistake. You say machine learning is like, you know, having an algorithm that you take, you know, let's say, you know, data of economic data, and you predict the stock. That is machine learning, and machine learning is not that. Machine learning is actually, the input is data, the output is a model. It's actually the rules, the logic, the algorithm, the recipe that actually the machine will ultimately use.
Right.
And so those are, to me, you know, I think more the nuances of understanding this field helps actually also people, navigate through it. So that would be my, my first step in actually of this people just knowing what we're talking about and,
Yeah, I'm glad you made that explanation because it's something that we thought about at the very beginning. Like, let's actually try to demystify and kind of clarify that. And now the audience and everybody has got to see a bit more of the discussion. I think it's a good little checkpoint to see. Yeah, this is the kind of separation of that. Did you have any points to?
Yeah, I'm just sick of hearing about Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg fighting about sentient AI and the general. This is coming again from the misconception and lack of understanding of the different separations between the nuances and the subtleties between them. A lot of people confuse machine learning for general purpose AI and sentient beings and whatnot. I actually also kind of disagree with Ray Kurzweil's prediction that the singularity is coming in by 2050. Singularity meaning machines becoming sentient and having human level intelligence and whatnot. The media wants to sell, so they jump on these whenever they get the chance. And I'm really tired of hearing these things because it's not that at all. The field is not that at all. It's not even close to it.
So are you with Elon Musk or
Look, I am of the opinion that there are some there are some debates in terms of ethical philosophy that need to happen right now. There are some universities in the US that are actually exploring this. This is an area that we are lacking in, majorly. Even in the field of software engineering and programming, the ethical debate doesn't happen. At universities, it doesn't happen, and I think it should happen. Because the programs we're writing, the things we're developing are affecting lives of human beings, and we have to really be able to evaluate and understand what our impact is. So I am with the opinion that we need to have these discussions. Doesn't mean that we're going to have sentient AI tomorrow morning coming in and destroying the world.
Ilyas, how about yourself? Oh, sorry.
I'm curious just to know about the reasons for disagreeing with Ray Kurzweil and just.
I think he's. I mean, I've read his books. I think he just wants to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean. I'm into. I mean, he's a great academic, but at the same time, I feel there's a lot of unnecessary hype, and maybe possibly non-realistic hype. I mean, yes, I understand that we're progressing at an exponential rate, but this is slowing down a little bit. Much more realistically, I would look at the Gartner hype curve and see where machine learning and AI is at, and we're gonna come to the trough where people are gonna stop being disillusioned about what the field can actually offer, and we start seeing the real impact of this field, and then things will take the normal shape and progress. That's why I disagree with Kurzweil.
So actually, part of that discussion is something that it is on, it is in the media. It is something that came up. So we can actually go a little bit into it in terms of, do you think computers will eventually replace human thinking further down the road?
That's a very tricky question. I think before that to happen, we need a paradigm shift in terms of computer architecture and in terms of what processing capacities we currently have. I don't think the von Neumann machines are capable of actually producing the current. This is based on my humble opinion, and I'm not an academic. But I don't think that these machines are capable of producing the human level intelligence. There is a limitation over there. And I think that a paradigm shift in terms of the hardware is necessary first before we can actually explore that other realm. So no, I'm not sure that sentient intelligence will happen in like 50 years. We haven't broken through quantum machines.
If we bring it back a little bit then into the current sort of applications that we've seen in terms of autonomous driving cars, also in the medical field where we're talking about sort of the cyborg, like having a replacement arm that artificial intelligence helps you control and sort of manage some of the things to aid humans. How do you think we balance sort of human intelligence and then machine intelligence? Like, what do you think
To take back like the example of chess, so Kasparov who lost to the machine, so he was saying that what is smarter than the machine that made him lose was a human being augmented by a machine which will recommend the moves to him, and then he could see what and make the final decision and maybe be more creative about the moves, etc. So I like to believe, in that direction, so that the machines and artificial intelligence will replace things that we currently do, but it will help us do other things, and together will become a superior species or whatever. It will help us to augment our capabilities rather than just replace everything we do.
And if we touch upon the topic of automation, in the previous topic we were talking about education. One of the things that machine learning can help with is grading assignments. So a big stress for teachers is to sit and do lots of marking and grading students. In personalized learning, maybe it'll be able to understand learning patterns and what things you weak at and grading this way, which would allow teachers to spend more time on some of the creative parts, or how to engage with the students better, or some of the more blended learning aspects of it, to get some of the data. And now we're living in a society where a lot of the data is helping us make decisions, to drive some of that. So is this how you sort of see the benefits of artificial intelligence?
Yes, totally.
And machine learning and the impact on various sectors and industries?
Exactly. But the challenge will be for humans to adapt to their new tasks and to leave the old ones and be able to reskill themselves to adapt to the new type of thinking. And in case they refuse to adapt to AI and AI applications, this is where they will become obsolete and irrelevant.
And Bassem, you mentioned before when we spoke, automation isn't something new. Everybody sort of can think back 100 years ago when there was the horse and carriage that did various things. Machines came in. Computers themselves are doing a lot of tasks that are replacing work.
Washing machines, apparently it was a big thing also. Really?
Really?
Yeah. There was an industry of manually and...
So one of the things that I think kind of creates the fear part of it is that artificial intelligence or technology will replace something by automation. But what kind of gets missed is the new jobs and the new opportunities that are created because of it. The internet is something that's fairly recent, although I'm sure most of us can't imagine a world without it. The internet created social media managers. It created a more casual
marketing specialist. Yeah.
Right. So what do you think AI, what kind of jobs and opportunities could it create? And also, how do we equip the workforce? So it might not be the job that people already used to, they're trained for and they know how to do, but how can we try to address that as well, like in terms of disruption?
Tricky question. No one else. Can I just say a few things? I'm going to take the opportunity to also answer one of the earlier questions. I think where's AI going, and and all that stuff. I think, and you said, will computer replace human thinking? I'm one of those also who don't think computers will replace or machine intelligence will ever replace human. They will do just like they have been, and they will do more things that humans may be able to do, but they may even be able to do them better. They will be able to do things. And I say they, we're starting to talk about they. Machines will be able to do, it will be able to, whatever. It will be able to do things that we could not think about. To me, a simple data point. We're not old enough here in the room that, we all remember when, you guys remember when the iPhone started? How long ago? The smartphone, basically. How long ago? About 11 years ago, right? 10 years ago. The iPhone X was the celebration of the 10 years of iPhone, right? So I for one cannot go anywhere now, travel in the world without my Google Map, right? I came here with Google Map. And Ilyas's point, I think basically AI is an evolution, not a revolution. But the evolution of AI actually is happening at a fast pace.
I mean, you look at technology change. I assume you all have, or most of you have, still, your old folks alive. My dad, my mom are not comfortable using still WhatsApp and sending messages or for us this is normal, right? And I think what no one thought 10 years ago we're going to be using Google Map. My parents for sure have no idea what Google Map do. So I think it's this evolution that's going to happen, and it's going to help us do a lot of things that we weren't able to do, and we'll be able to do, and there will be a gap, right? So that goes into your second question. There will be a gap, and possibly more of a generation gap, because the younger crowd they adapt much easier, much faster. Again, when the iPad came out, an infant starts playing with it, right? I mean, even before the older person is comfortable just touching this device. And I think the same pattern will happen, going forward. There will be things, that will happen 10 years from now that none of us could even imagine are going to be there. We could start thinking about things that we can imagine. I'm saying things that we could not even imagine, and they will happen. And what people say, are these, replacing human beings? Definitely not. And but this evolution will happen fast. And to close this gap, to your second question, I think, and the opportunities. I think this is moving fast. I think this crowd here may be at an advantage, and a major advantage compared to others who may not have come here or know what's going on, because there's an opportunity not just to catch up, but to influence it. We are the ones actually who would have an opportunity, if we have the desire, to actually shape it the way it should be, and to shape it the way we think it hopefully helps humanity rather than possibly harm humanity. And along the way, from maybe a career perspective, this is definitely a golden opportunity. I mean, you've talked about it. There's a tremendous need for data scientists. And when I say, and I'm using data scientists because I'm not just thinking about technology. Any field you're expert in, can build up some additional technology knowledge, and you've become, a data scientist. And there's tremendous opportunity for, financial, leverage from this. So there's also one more point I want to say. So there's the gloom part. Okay, all of this, the evolution and the opportunity for shaping and humanity help. This is the gloom part. I also, think there are dooms. I mean, I'm not. I'm not tired of this discussion of, will machines replace humanity? Will it? I think there's some merit to that discussion. It's not. I personally, again, I don't think it will replace it, but there's some merit to that discussion. I go back to that simple example that, that manager of the apartment complex, and I ask him why, the price is so high. I say that's what the machines say. Uber, just a few days ago, they bought a whole fleet of self-driving vehicles. Do they really understand what they're getting themselves into? Do we really, us, understand what we're getting ourselves into? The crash of the stock market in 2007, was it? Yeah, it was a prediction mistake, right? It was an AI mistake, and that caused tremendous financial losses. So I think it's all happening, and I think there's the pluses and the minuses, and I think we have a great opportunity in this room, and anybody who wants to play a role in this, to actually shape it, not just shape it, benefit from it, make it for the better of humanity. And there are the gloom, which I think is your topic. At some point you want to talk about the ethics, all that stuff that we also have to figure out and deal with and be prepared for and protect ourselves. And maybe that's another area that we should start thinking about. What can we do, not just to educate people about AI, what can we do to educate people about how to protect themselves against AI? I'm going to leave this last note with an example, and then, this is not a cybersecurity discussion, but, again, I go back to my 14-year-old who just went into that ethical hacking. He bought this little USB, we're sitting at home, we're just, each one, we're doing their work. Mom is on her laptop, and Ahmed, my son, is, doing whatever he was doing, and suddenly, Mom says, Hazem, my laptop crashed. And what was it? My son was playing with her, and he hacked into her computer without her knowing, and he shut it down for her. And so, I mean, and what did he do? I mean, he took an opportune time where she wasn't paying attention. He plugged in this USB, a backdoor into her computer. And
is it ethical?
Well, he told her. Yeah, but I think, there's a lot of exciting, but also concerns to me,
Actually, yeah, we're short on time, but I want to just quickly get through a few more questions. We'll come back to ethical debate in just a second. One of the points you were talking about Google Maps, I thought it was quite fascinating because when I used to drive through London before Google Maps, we had to learn to read maps. And before TomTom, before GPS navigation, you actually had to be able to read maps. And so you needed to have somebody sit by you and kind of flick pages and know which page to go to next. You stopped regularly to ask people for landmarks and things like that. Is human existence with these assistive sort of AI technologies, is it going to come to a point where it's going to become a basic necessity? Can we get anywhere now without Google Maps, without, particularly when you get to a new country, we're so reliant on Uber or Kareem. What do you think is some of the risks in that sense?
It has already. I mean, in 2013, I traveled with a group of friends to Portugal. So Portugal, they speak Portuguese, and it's not a language we're familiar with. We bought a GPS part of the car rental, and we couldn't figure out how it works. So imagine 3 computer scientists, and we couldn't figure out how the GPS works and how to turn it on. So it took us literally 4 hours from the airport to our hostel, and once we got to the hostel, we figured out that the airport was here, the hostel was here, but we took a round trip of 3 hours before we got there, simply because we couldn't turn on the GPS. So yes, I think it's becoming quite how do you say it, indispensable,
right,
in a way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, I mean, this discussion has been discussed academically with Marshall McLuhan. He has a book called Understanding Media, and he did this reference in one of the videos about the wheel becoming an extension of our legs, the TV becoming an extension of our minds and whatnot. This is exactly the debate that is in the book. It's a philosophical debate about these things, and I think technology and machine learning specifically are becoming an extension of our minds. This is inevitable. I mean, it is right now happening. It's not like it's gonna happen. It is now.
And if I may add to the conversation, I think it's a very subtle augmentation. We don't necessarily perceive our phones as making us smarter, but they really do. We have at the tips of our fingertips a vast sea of information that we can tap into. However, now I think the problem is with the bandwidth and interfacing with this technology, and maybe that's one of the things that really ought to be looked into now, and how to increase this bandwidth, this communication line between the technology and ourselves, and how can we interface better with this technology. And also I'd like to add the fact that technology has always been a double-edged sword. Okay, ever since we created fire and it kept us warm, but it also burned down our villages. So it's really all about, and my view on the matter is really, I'm agnostic about the fact whether technology is inherently good or bad. I think it's much more about how we as humans end up using this technology. And the problem right now is that the technology is evolving at a much faster rate than our consciousness is, and sometimes we create technology that is stronger, or maybe not, that is dangerously strong in regards to how much we understand how to use it. And I think you touched upon it slightly earlier in regards to Kareem or Uber buying a fleet of AI cars, self-driving cars, and whether or not they really understand what they're getting themselves into. So maybe as well there must be some light shed onto, okay, we have this technology, but how can we use it to augment our experience rather than detriment the human.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. And in terms of how society might change, like one of the sort of follow-ups to the last point was that, and the impact of social media and having our smartphones and having any kind of information available sort of with a click of a button, or Alexa tell me this, Siri tell me this. Are our human brains going to degenerate? Are we not going to use our brains in the same way that we used to before? What sort of impact would that have in terms of the future? And so just to add to this is more of a philosophical conversation. There's no necessarily answers. It's just to spark a debate and to kind of keep these ideas in mind as well, so anybody can sort of contribute to any of this stuff.
There's a project we discussed, Ziad mentioned the chess problem that was a project by IBM called Deep Blue. The fascinating part is they have a new project called Project Debater. And this is something that everyone should see. Basically, you have a professional debater sitting with an AI machine designed and built by IBM, an IBM Watson, and the input is only the topic of the debate. And you have people scoring who will win the debate. And you can see the actual project debater is winning the professional debater, the human, on certain debate topics, and something that everyone should see the videos of how they are doing this. It's outstanding. The moment they give the machine the topic, instantly goes and crawls all the internet and gathers all the information and start actually talking like just like a normal human being.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
It's
sort of
debater is something big.
It's exciting from the technological point of view, but also in terms of what's possible now.
And it works. I mean, it's not something that he built something that actually works. You can actually talk to the actual machine, and they are using their quantum processors in order to make it better and faster.
I'm a little bit skeptical about. I mean, a lot of these are marketing stunts, like the last one that Google did in the when they the assistant thing. I mean, yes, we are progressing at a massive rate, but I mean, we're not there yet. I think these are staged to a certain extent. The domains that they tackle are very limited, and you know what I mean. They rely a lot because they want to sell Watson. IBM wants to, because it feels irrelevant a little bit, and they want to come back to the scene. So Watson is their ticket into this field right now. And I think that's why they're investing a lot of money. They want to sell it as a service. So they want to show you that, no, actually Watson can come in and play this role of the plug-and-play type of machine learning engine in your enterprise, right? This is what I think Wolfram Alpha was trying to do a long time ago as well, as a computational engine and all that. Again, the point I'm trying to make is that I'll take these with a grain of salt, because most of them are marketing stunts just to promote some product, sell some product, or make themselves more relevant.
There are lots of approaches in order to sell the product, but the debater project is spot on.
I'll actually look into it. I'll check it out, definitely.
So, sorry to interrupt. We've actually run out of time. There's a lot more questions that we could ask and discuss and go more into, but I think it's important to respect each of these people, everybody's time. Hope this session was valuable for people, and this is actually just the beginning. We should have more of these discussions on these topics and trends. I wanted to bring it back to actually the startup ecosystem here, and also the VC's roles in terms of, do they have responsibility in sort of the debate that we had to invest in good versus bad AI companies, what makes them right, what's an ethical thing to do. It's something that we might open up in a future discussion. If there's things that you've thought of, or if you're watching the stream or follow-up videos later on, please just reach out to the community, and we're happy to create as many of these kind of sessions to have these debates and discussions, and it's been great hearing from everybody here. I'd like to thank our panelists, Dr. Hazim Haj, Elias, and Basim, and you guys that all took your time out to attend. We have some food and drinks outside, so you're more than welcome to stay till, for the next 45 minutes to talk to each other. I always think it's important to listen to sort of people from industry, but the most important people that are doing things are you. you're learning, you're supposed to use this to spark something. So reach out to one another, find out what you're working on and how you might be able to build a better community. And yeah, thanks everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you. It was very nice.
Thanks.